Hey guys, what's up? It is week 431. Let's jump right into the reviews for you. And first up is from Arrow Video, and this is the Platinum Dunes remake from 2003 of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Marcus Nispel. So Platinum Dunes started a line of remakes in the early 2000s with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They would go on to do Amityville Horror. In 2005, they did Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, also directed by Marcus Nispel, who did Texas Chainsaw. So they had a handful of them, and it was pretty controversial when the Texas Chainsaw came out. Of course, the original 1974 movie is held in such a high regard. It's one of those movies that a lot of people felt is kind of untouchable. Lightning in a bottle. Just a very important horror film, of course. And yeah, so this one, when it initially came out, how old was I? 16 years old or something along the lines, and I was a massive hater of remakes at the time. Arms crossed, all sorts of things like that. And I just hated the thing. I never gave it a fair chance. I just didn't understand all that kind of stuff like that. So, and that doesn't mean that it means all remakes are great or something like that. But as the years progressed and it went on, I definitely watched it a couple more times in the years. And, I grew a little appreciation for it. This time around, I actually say I like the movie. I think I do. And when you look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, it's a pretty wild franchise. First in 74, then the sequel directed by Hooper 13 years later for Cannon Films, Part 2, which is a wild comedy, which Hooper originally thought the first one was a comedy as well. We have a third one in 1990 by Jeff Burr, which restarts the series. The fourth one, directed by Kim Heekle, original writer on the first film, in 1994-95. Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Next Generation, whatever you want to call it. And that kind of is this a remake or a sequel to the first one. They get really weird. And then we have this remake in 2003 and then a prequel to that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, the cast has Jessica Biel, is pretty infamous. A lot of people always talk about how great she looked in this movie. That's a lot of the comments you read about this film, even to this day. And Arlie Ermy, who's famous for playing a drill sergeant, authoritarian type character. Full Metal Jacket was his big call to fame. Endlessly quotable. He also is in The Frighteners and Seven. He's just got a great character actor. The remake of Willard, another remake there, doing a very good job filling Ernest Borgnine's shoes in that one. So Arlie Ermy is actually the best part of this film, and I'm not saying the film is horrible or anything like that. We also bring back Daniel Pearl, who did the original cinematography for the first one, and this is one thing that I had completely misunderstood about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And saying this, I've talked about the movie before, it's been covered a lot, so people are probably more concerned about the new release, new features, and how the film looks. It looks really good. It looks solid. You guys know this is kind of a more crisp looking, clean looking version of the movie. Of course, it's not that same documentary style feel. It's a very crisp looking movie, and the 4K looks really great. Besides that, the one thing that I misunderstood kind of, you look back in the day, you'd look and see, somebody's remake Chainsaw Massacre. Who is it? And you look him up and you see Marcus Nispel, and all he had directed was music videos. So you're like, he's just a crappy music video director. Completely, unknowingly to you, is that if you look at Marcus Nispel, he has a bunch of other credits doing other things in films and working for years and years and years. And I never really grasped that until listening to the special features and everything like that and some interviews with Marcus Nispel, and you realize the guy had been working a very long time. He's actually friends with the original cinematographer, and they got together to decide to do this. He wanted Daniel Pearl, and then that's kind of had some fights with the production and all that kind of stuff like that. So it adds for more of an interesting kind of deal that Marcus Nispel was like a lifelong filmmaker kind of before he directed, music videos, and then this one, of course. So the story is pretty typical. They do change some things around. They have 5 friends traveling. We don't have Franklin, of course, in a wheelchair, but we do have a kind of a character who complains the entire time and is always kind of I don't want to even call him the voice of reason, the voice of, always says something snarky to say. I think his name is Gordon, is it? Or something along those lines. But they're smuggling marijuana, and they pick up a hitchhiker, similar to the first film. And this hitchhiker, instead of being a crazy, and Edwin O'Neill's cutting himself up, she commits suicide. And probably the most, I would say the most infamous shot of the film. The camera follows through the whole of the exit wound, and I still don't know how they did that, but they did a really good job, really clever with the shot, and it's a great shot. So that's what brings the sheriff in here, and that's where the changes kind of happen here. The guy who plays who plays Leatherface is Andrew Bernowski. He was a working actor for years. He pops up in Batman Returns and Street Fighter as Zangief, and Higher Learning as Nako, one of the neo-Nazis in that one. And I feel like I'm missing. Oh, he's in one of my all-time favorites, Hudson Hawk, as Butterfingers. Named Butterfingers. No shit. Always love that. He's very funny in those movies. So he's a big, huge guy, intimidating guy. So he fit the role of Leatherface pretty well. And I know a lot of people probably are not a huge fan of him because there was some kind of coarse words said after Gunnar Hansen passed, the original Leatherface, and all that and whatever involves that. But it doesn't change the fact that he was still a pretty damn good Leatherface. And they also talk on the special features and things like that, how they really, Daniel Pearl, the cinematographer, wanted to do something different. It's like, we already nailed that gritty kind of documentary look. Let's make it crisp. And Marcus Nispel says, okay, when he saw it, he's like, I actually do kind of like this. And they went with it. Michael Bay being a producer, you're going to kind of expect kind of a crisp, kind of different look. You know, Bay being known for giant explosions in his movies, Armageddon, Bad Boys, lots of explosions and stuff like that, the Transformer films. So, and it took me a long time to kind of warm up to this. And looking at the franchise as a whole, I probably put this in the top half of them. You know, 1 and 2 are always going to be my favorites. But, you know, there's, 8 or 9 of these things now, surprisingly. And I put it above all the last 3 that came out, for sure. Most definitely. And 4, you know. I mean, the last 3 ones that came out that aren't the remake or the prequel. It's definitely better than those. And it's better than Part 4, most definitely. So, as far as the new features there are a bunch, too, which is great. They have all the old stuff ported over, the featurettes and things like that, commentaries. But we have a brand new commentary with audio commentary, Dread Central co-founder Steve Uncle Creepy Barton and co-host the Spooky Picture Show podcast Chris McGebbon. Archival audio commentary with director Marcus Nispel, Michael Bay, producers Brad Fuller and Andrew Form, New Line founder Robert Shea. And then we also have one with Nispel, Daniel Pearl, Greg Blair, Scott Gallagher, Trevor Jolly, and composer Steve Yablonsky. Archival audio commentary with Nispel, Bay, writer Scott Kozer, Brad Fuller, Andrew Foreman, actor Jessica Biel, Eric Learson, Eric Bafford, Jonathan Tucker, Mike Vogel, and Andrew Baranowski. So we have 4 commentaries on here and 1 new one. Reimagining a classic, brand new interview with director Marcus Nispel. And Nispel came across a pretty intelligent, likable guy, actually, smart guy. And his insight was interesting. I don't think he directs movies anymore. I think he's kind of moved past that. At least he doesn't make movies in Hollywood. And then we have Shadows of Yesteryear, a brand new interview with cinematographer Daniel Pearl. Again, mentions some of that he mentions they wanted to do something a little bit different. And he tells a funny story how he became somebody that they really didn't want on the front and center, but then he became a spotlight basically when the news articles kind of covered that. Talked about him. The Lost Leatherface, a brand new interview with actor Brent Wagner. This is interesting, something I didn't know about the movie, that there was an actor playing Leatherface and he got injured the first day on set and had to replace him. His is actually kind of a heartfelt story and he seems like a genuinely real cool guy. He's got some Gunnar Hansen stories in there. Massacre is a brand new interview with special effects artist Scott Stoddard. Chainsaw Sympathy, a brand new interview with composer Steve Yablonsky. He talks about the process of making the score and how it's still used to temp scores to this day. I don't know which one he says that on, the other disc. And Chainsaw Redux, Making a Massacre, Making of Documentary, Ed Gein, The Ghoul of Plainfield, Butcher of Plainfield. An in-depth look at the infamous killer who inspired the character of Leatherface. Severed Parts, a look at the cutting room floor and some of the scenes exercised from the final edit. Deleted scenes including alternate opening and ending. Screen test for Jessica Biel, Eric Balford, and Erica Legion. Behind-the-scenes featurette, cast and crew interviews, theatrical trailer, TV spots, concept art galleries, reversible sleeve featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Aaron Lay. Double-sided fold-out poster featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Aaron Lay. Illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writings on the film by Michael Gingold. So, saying about this movie, covering the features, things I really did like is R. Lee Ermey improved a lot of his lines. The scene that he has with the kind of stick-in-the-mud character is great. That character seems absolutely horrified, and the knocking out the teeth, all those lines, the way that unfolds is just truly intense and terrifying. A lot of the special effects are really strong. Most of them I see are practical from my memory. And there's some weird things that a lot of people say about this. Like, I've heard people be like, it's too wet for a Texas Chainsaw. They always want the dry climate, but Texas is a huge state. And it does have kind of a nasty element that it's super wet like that. Overall, I think that the Texas Chainsaw remake is a solid remake. It's not as good as the original. And that's just preference, I think. I think that the original was something so special and so unique, and there's nothing quite like it. There's a lot of rip-offs. There's a lot of, movies that are definitely heavily inspired by it, but I think it's really hard to recreate that movie because of a lot of factors that played into it. But this one is really enjoyable. And I know a lot of people actually probably grew up watching this one. The movie is 22, 23 years old now at this point, 22 years old, which is insane to me to think. But yeah, people probably, maybe there's young people watching this channel, I don't know. But they probably weren't born. They were born after this movie, which is crazy to think. I still remember like it was yesterday when it came out, arguing about it with my friends and my little nitpicks and stuff like that. I think that the family in the original two films I prefer, but I think R. Lee Ermey is a fantastic addition in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre world. I think he's a great character. I think that the way he plays it is scary, intimidating, and just overall intense. And the idea that what happens to these kids that gets them to stick around is believable, I think, to a certain extent. Yeah, good stuff, great stuff, good small town feel, and they do some mystery into the backstory you figure out in the next film, but they give some hints what happened and stuff. But check out the Texas Chainsaw, it looks great, sounds great. 7.1 mix, really good stuff. Okay, next up here is the prequel to the Texas Chainsaw remake, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Yes, from 2006, directed by Joseph Liesman, who directed Wrath of the Titans, the sequel to the remake of Clash of the Titans, which is not a horrible film. Those new Titans movies aren't horrible, and Arrow actually put those out as well. But this one here, confession to make here, I think this is my actual third favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre after the first two. And a lot of that is due in part to R. Lee Ermey's performance. So, of course, in the end of the first film, R. Lee Ermey, spoiler, dies, and Leatherface loses his arm. Nispel wanted to kill Leatherface off, he said, but the studio kind of wouldn't allow it. But so they really couldn't do a sequel directly because Ermey was a very popular character, so they decided to do this prequel. The bad thing about a prequel is we kind of know the outcome of most of the characters in here, but this is kind of the fun aspect where we see characters are in different positions and they have different things, and we got to see how they're going to get to that point. So it kind of paints together. Lee Ermey, originally, you think he's just a sheriff. You don't know how he's related. They show how he became the sheriff of this small town that was struggling. The meatpacking place closed down, and everybody was sent home. Everybody basically left this town except this one family, the Hewlett family. And they basically start eating anyone that comes in. And it definitely knocks home the whole Saw is family aspect, which became a big part of the franchise, right? The Saw is family. You kind of have to live and die by the Saw, that whole thing like that. But yeah, they really do that well in here. This time we follow a group of 4 that are traveling cross country, 2 brothers, one of which who is in Vietnam, he's basically got drafted to Vietnam. His older brother had already been to Vietnam, and he's re-enlisting to go in with his brother, and we both have their girlfriends. One's much younger. One is kind of gung-ho about going back. That's kind of his MO. He becomes this whole giant soldier kind of guy. And the other one is terrified, but he's afraid to tell his brother that him and his girlfriend are going to dip to Mexico and draft dodge. On the way driving through, they encounter some bikers that cause an accident. This biker chick, and they cause a car accident, and of course Lee Ermey shows up, and there's going to be trouble. They don't really know what's going on, but he's going to take them back to the family and start killing immediately, and his family's going to have to get used to the idea that they're going to be something new, something different. Now, the opening with Lou Temple in the very beginning, how they close the butcher shop and the sheriff and everything is great stuff. And Lee Ermey is incredibly funny. They give him more to do. They give him more spotlight on here. They give him more one-liners. That's the goddamn ugliest thing I ever saw. But it's just a lot of torture in these movies, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, I don't like the torture stuff, but a lot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies did have that kind of stuff in here. Of course, the original is less gory than people actually remember and stuff like that. But, yeah, there's a lot of torture and whatnot. But the characters in both of these films, the remake and the prequel, they fight. They fight for their lives. They struggle. They don't give up, no matter how bad it gets, how hard it gets. They do actually give up at times, but they fight damn well, and you understand why they give up. They are to the bitter end, which I can actually respect. When people die, they have emotional impact towards each other. They're sad. It feels more grounded in reality than a lot of its other, I wouldn't want to call this a slasher, but slasher contemporaries of, even the 70s original movies, and like, the newer movies that were coming out here. That feels like there's a little bit of stakes in here. The only downside is we know how this is going to end. Lee Turgidson pops up in here from Oz, and he's Beecher from Oz. He plays a biker in here. But there's a couple really tremendous deaths, one including one of the best chainsaw deaths when Leatherface actually finds his chainsaw. He uses it to pick somebody up, which is absolutely brutal. Gory, good special effects. And the filmmakers here had kind of a lot of juggling to do because they had to pay homage to the original. They wanted to add some stuff in that the remake left out, like the dinner table scene. So they wanted to be true to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. But they also had to essentially kind of copy the look of the new one, which was kind of wet in a lot of places, used the same house, all that kind of stuff like that. So I think they did both of those fairly well, and I think they're successful at both of that stuff. So it's kind of picking up the pieces with the remake didn't use, and then kind of carrying it on forward and telling more of a story. But I think that they paint the picture of the story and everything like that really well. The prequel, I think the guy playing Leatherface again, I think he does a good job. I think R. Lee Ermey does a fantastic job. This one looks pretty good, sounds good. There's a gnarly car accident in the very beginning. I would highly recommend this one. I think it actually might be gorier than the first one. That has unrated and rated versions on here for people that want to check that out, and a bunch of new features, of course, too. We have the 7.1 audio, 5.1, 2.1 on the uncut and theatrical versions. Original subtitles, of course, for both cuts. Brand new commentary with the uncut version. Dread Center co-founder Uncle Creepy and co-host Spooky Radio podcast Chris Matt Gibbon. Archival commentary tracks with the uncut Jonathan Liebesman and producers Andrew Foreman, Brad Fuller. Hoyt actually brand new interview with actor Lou Temple. Gotta love that. Classic actor pops up in the house. What was it? Devil's Rejects. He's good in that. He was in The Walking Dead and Halloween remake in the director's cut. Original skins K&B FX, a brand new interview with special effects artist, makeup artist Jake Garber, and special effects makeup technician Kevin Wasner. Talk about some of the stuff they created and how they both got involved, how the younger guy was kind of excited to work with Garber. Light and Sawdust, a brand new interview with director of photography Lucas Itlin. Down to the Bone, Anatomy of a Prequel, an archival making of documentary featuring many interviews with cast and crew members, deleted and extended scenes with commentary from director Liebesman and producers Andrew Foreman and Brad Fuller. Theatrical trailer, reversible sleeve featuring original and newly commissioned artwork by Aaron Lay. Double-sided fold-out poster featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Lay again, and an illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writings on the film by Michael Gingold. So, really enjoyed this one. Looks great, sounds great, gory. Underrated, I think. Underrated for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, especially the beginning. I do think it. I think the remake gets its flowers, and I think people do love it. People do hate it. It's got its popularity, but I think the prequel is a lot better than people give it credit for. Hey, and I'm a big sucker for R. Lee Ermey. Him being in these movies elevates it great. And one of the absolute funniest scenes in here is how they show how these people are so desensitized to violence or normalizing it, where these kind of locals, the mother of Lee Ermey and one of the local, the heavy woman, she's in both films, are sitting there talking about recipes and things, and they're being so nonchalant about things like, oh, I love iced coffee, and then they zoom down and somebody's like tied to their table. It's just a nice little reveal, a nice little brilliant comedy, dark comedy moment that I like. That kind of stuff really works well for me when they kind of make you wait for it. Good stuff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, a lot of fun. Okay, this next one here from Deaf Crocodile is The Devil's Bride, and I'll be relatively quick with this one, and not that it's a bad movie or I don't have anything to say about it, but it's a lot going on here. It's very complicated kind of movie in terms of just where it's from and things of that nature. I wouldn't say the story's super complicated, but you guys get it. So The Devil's Bride here, 1974 Lithuanian rock opera, rock musical kind of thing here. So this is based off a book, which is kind of a classic myth tale, the devil sold your devil, sold to the devil, all those kind of things, Daniel Webster kind of style thing. And the 70s had a lot of rock opera, you got like Phantom of Paradise, Tommy, lots of stuff going on around that time. But so this one is wild. The first thing I noticed watching this film, I had not heard much about it, I knew the title and just a little bit about it, was how visually stunning it was. It's amazing. It's shot in these giant mountains, beautiful location, and it's relatively short. I think it's like 80 minutes or something, like 85 minutes. It's not super long, but non-stop music, non-stop at all. You know, a lot of musicals, even rock operas you'll watch, there's a few downbeat moments where there's not down moments where it's not exactly music. There might be music playing and over, but not people are singing. This one, almost every scene is music, singing, and that kind of changes a little bit for a lot. I think it's a little bit different here. So this book is a lot bigger and it's different according to the commentary. There's more characters and things, but what they had to do obviously was cut it down. So a lot of the music has exposition and stories of these characters. The music's really good. It's all ADR later, but the performances are solid. And like I said, the visuals are great. The set designs are great. The costumes are great. The story is it's a little convoluted, but fairly kind of simple in the same aspect that we have these devils that are these angels. You know, one guy is cast out from heaven, and he makes this kind of deal. He becomes enslaved by this old man, and they make this deal. What he doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but it ends up like damning his young unborn daughter. So this whole aspect that she wants to marry this guy who's in love with his horses that rides around the countryside, but she can't because she's promised to this kind of devil, and he's all doing these shisty kind of evil things and all this kind of aspects like that. That's kind of what we have here. And the main character is definitely mischievous. I mean, the devil character, always trying to pull fast ones, and there's a lot of kind of big kind of crazy songs that happen. Sorry about that, but I think the saddest and my favorite song is probably the one in the beginning where the old man kind of sings about his lost love, and we have this like exposition kind of transition scene where they're growing and moves along at a breakneck speed, to be honest. But I think that The Devil's Bride is a vividly rich movie with great songs and a nice look at, you know, Lithuanian folklore, and I think the special features are add great context to it as well. So we have a new video interview with Monica Egger, director Aronas Zabranos' daughter, and her father's career making of The Devil's Bride in English. It's about an hour long with Dennis Bartok. It's about 53 minutes talking to her. It's good stuff. New video interview with Lithuanian film critic Eva Sukait about the history of Lithuanian cinema and The Devil's Bride in English. New video essay by Dr. Will Dotson and Ryan Verrill of the Someone's Favorite podcast. And we also have a commentary on here. It's not listed, but I think one of these is actually probably the commentary that on here that goes through the entire thing. And the commentary is good stuff as well. And it talks a lot about, you know, the book and you know, a lot, and the differences and what the director thought of the director's daughter thought of the movie. Not the director's daughter, I mean the writers of the book's daughter or wife at the time, and how some people really didn't like it, but it was a critical hit. All that kind of stuff going through here. So 76 minutes, relatively short, Lithuanian with English subtitles, region A locked. Great stuff. Very visually pleasing, and it is more of a family kind of film. I think it's appropriate for family and children and stuff like that. But I would recommend The Devil's Bride if you're into musicals, rock operas. It's definitely a unique one that's visually great. Okay, we're going to start this box set here. This is Shinobi. This is volume 2 from Radiance Films. They did the first one, 3 films on, I think, 2 discs, kind of like this one. So there's 3 in here. This is Siege, Return of Miss Saizo, who is the ninja, and the last Iga Spy. So we're going to start with Siege, part 4. Now, the first films kind of followed their own characters, at least 2 and 3 do, from my memory, with the same lead actor as the ninja here. And now this one follows the same actor as a different kind of character, and what's happening is he works for this one shogun in what is the actor's name? I love the actor Wakayama, who is in a bunch of Radiance Films releases. He's just a great kind of like actor, a very good screen presence, big kind of brute of guy. He plays kind of like this lord, and he's at war with another guy who has more forces, 300,000 men, and they're roughly at like 80,000 men, and they're kind of butting heads, and he wants, the evil guy with 300,000 men wants to take these guys out. He's plotting all these things like that, but Yama wants to get rid of him, so he sends this group of kind of ninjas, or shinobi if you will, to take them out, and he runs into like kind of another ex-ninja that is kind of like his, I guess, like his arch nemesis in that kind of aspect, who's a good character actor in a lot of these movies, and he is he finds like a lost woman that he knew very well, that he protected in battle, and has kind of a love relationship with her, and she's been kind of pushed into like this, I guess, like a brothel kind of area, and she's like feels like she's been, you know, forsaken and things like that, but there's a love relationship that happens with them. And so our main character here, Miss what is it, Miss Shizu or something, I can't think of it, how to say it, but he kind of sneaks in to this fortress, and his sole plan is to kill the other Shogun kind of guy, who's like this evil bastard and everything like that. There's a really cool scene where all these ninjas, like you meet them and stuff like that, and you kind of see like them get picked off one by one without spoiling too much. Visually, this is a fantastic movie. It's black and white, so they use their lighting really well, and their sets really well, and their backdrops really well. There's some scenes where we're kind of looking from a distance and like and I always say like a medium kind of shot, and we see a lot of the characters coming through the woods, and it's a really good depth in the shot, and we see like trees and like this whole like almost mist fog in the far background and the deep you know, kind of focus, and it just looks fantastic, and it looks like you know, just a magical kind of night. There's a character what falls in the water after they're killed, and it's from the point of view we see them fall into the water, and the water is almost memorizing, where it's like these black and the reflection, and you can't see what's happening, and it's very kind of, you know, it's just memorizing, where you're like, whoa, what's that? Like, it's just dark and cool looking, and I actually was taken back how that looked. Normally you're like, oh, a guy falls in water, who gives a shit? But literally that scene was like one of those where I was like, oh, this is so much better made than it has any right to be in a simple kind of samurai kind of story, just, you know, or ninja story, not samurai. Sorry guys, ninja and samurai, completely different. But yeah, this one's cool, this one's fun, and it leads right open to the next one coming through, which I'm very excited to check out. There is, and there was some special features on here too that I did listen to. There's a partial commentary by Tom Mez. It's like 48 minutes where he talks a little bit about, you know, Dai and the company and this stuff, and breaks it down a little bit, but it's a partial commentary. Still good stuff. I'm looking forward to checking out the sequel, because that returns right to where this one left off. You know, I don't want to spoil anything, but obviously the conflict is not over, and the ending's great because it's basically this whole castle, the siege. They're holding the siege on the castle. The good guys are trying to hold it back and stuff like that, and there's this good dramatic bit at the very end where the castle's crumbling and he's trying to get his shogun out of there and everything like that. See, it's like when it comes to like the proper terms for this stuff, I'm not 100%. Like the shogunate was like the kind of like government at one point, like the owner, like, and all these different time frames and everything changes. So like when I'm using terms like shogun and like samurai, I'm Ronin is like a traveling, you know, samurai without a kingdom, like whatever it is, it's just probably not exactly accurate. I'm using layman's terms, and I'm probably fucking them up. But this is just your dumb kind of Westerner being like, I'm trying to understand ancient Japanese culture through the eyes of a pulp ninja movie. But it looked fantastic, it sounded fantastic, and this one was a very enjoyable, easy to watch one. You know, Shinobi for Siege, and this series went on for a lot. So there's 2 more in here. I don't know how long this series went, but it was a very popular series. So I'm glad that Radiance is actually continuing doing them. It's kind of like who put out the Film Movement, I think, put out the first Red Gambler series, Red Peony Gambler. So I'm looking forward to maybe watching those eventually. I know I picked it up, but these series go on forever sometimes. Okay, we're continuing more Pete Walker here, and what we got is the Flesh and Blood Show from the Pete Walker 88 film set. 1972, more of a horror film for sure, and it was kind of weird. Like they have Jonathan Rigby, and I can't think of the other guy doing the commentary. I will when I get on there. Both like kind of British film scholars. They're talking in the commentary like it's got to have been remade later as Stage Fright 1987, Michele Soave. I'm like, really? I mean, like I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily like a remake to me, but you know, I'm probably very less loose with remakes in terms of that kind of aspect. Like it literally has to be like an official remake to call it that or something along those lines. But you know, and also what is the Giallo story here? The killer reserves 9 seats. I think that's kind of in the vein of this, if you guys will, where they're locked in the theater. I can't remember. I get a lot of those Giallo titles mixed up if they're not some of the bigger ones that I've seen 2 or 3 times. But we basically follow the story here. Where in the very beginning we have this like actor, this guy playing like a prank on these 2 beautiful you know, actresses. He comes in and he fakes his own death, and we're kind of introduced to like 3 of our characters right there. Flesh and Blood Show has a lot of nudity. It's 1972, so it's like the height of a lot of Euro horror, a lot of Hammer stuff. So this one packs in tons of nudity, lots of large breasts, lots of naked women, and even some full frontal male nudity, which kind of surprised me for this one here. And it has a 3D sequence that's used at the very ending here. So I know a lot of the 50s had 3D, and then we had the 80s kind of reoccurrence thing with the 3D. But hey, there's a couple stragglers here. 1972, Pete Walker is using 3D. So yeah, so these actors are basically doing this kind of guerrilla style weird show. There's like 8 of them, and they're all prepared to do this thing. The director's partaking in it too, and they're all doing it in this old abandoned theater that's out on the pier. And they have one kind of big actress coming in who has some popularity, and she needs to kind of just go here and flex her acting muscle and get some, you know, I guess some credentials that she was in theater. So they go here, and almost immediately weird shit starts to happen. We have the prankster there, so he's a big red herring. And there's a couple old people that are surrounding the area. One lady who rents a hotel out, but they decide to stay in the theater. And we have this old guy, Major something, I can't think of his name, but he's great. He's like, I used to do some acting myself, and the kids are kind of making fun of him. And as Sam Deacon said in the first commentary, Die Screaming Marianne, there's always constantly kind of a age kind of gap in Pete Walker's, these old versus young mentality and ideas in his films, and I can definitely see that already, starting with this one, The Flesh and Blood Show. So I like this one fine, but as I reflect more on it, I think I enjoyed a little bit more than that. His films have kind of weird things that happen that they don't necessarily follow any typical plot structure exactly. I mean, like script structure that you would guess. But like, for example, like one of the characters is killed right away, and the guy finds the head and the body next to the guillotine, and like the guillotine underneath. In the props and stuff, and he's like, he goes to show somebody, and then he was like, oh, must have been my imagination, and you're like, it's a little hammy, a little kind of like done in that aspect. But we have this major flashback that kind of reveals what the hell is going on, and I like that. It's kind of definitely turns into like psychological shit going here. And there's a great scene where one of these characters is walking through the old theater, and he's like soliloquizing to himself, and he's saying this big speech, and he's like an actor. It's just great stuff. I loved it after he's like provoked. It reminds me a lot of, you know, the Pete Walker movie I had seen, the House of Long Shadows from 1983, where Vincent Price walks in, and he kind of his character's introduced, and he's like, oh, where's the laughter? And I got the Vincent Price mustache going on here, but he's like, there was never laughter. That whole speech that he gives in that, and you're like, oh, that's nice, because Vincent Price is known for the soliloquies, right? The big, like, long drawn out, like, acting performance here, and it's like, oh, Pete Walker was doing that kind of stuff even without, you know, Vincent Price in his movies. You know, he has this classic actor here doing it, and it's brilliant. And he's like, excrement. I love that scene. It was great. Yeah, but this movie has a lot more nudity than expected. It goes to show you how back in the day, like the 70s movies, they were just like, we don't give a nudity for everybody, nudity everywhere. And I'm like, I can kind of appreciate nudity in movies, you know, because it's sparingly used now in more mainstream films. A lot of people put it on TV, but no, it's kind of set me back here. And the kills are decent. It's not a huge body count in here. The kills aren't miraculously well done, but I think the psychological aspects that are added into the end are worth it. I think that you know, the characters are decent, and overall I thought it looked pretty good, sounded good. I liked it. The Flesh and Blood Show, I liked the location being the theater by the pier, and they used that pretty decently, and I so expected them all to get locked in almost immediately, but that is not really the case. But yeah, there's a lot of like these guys doing this hippy dippy kind of crazy art theater thing. As far as the special features are concerned, next up is House of Whipcord, which should be fun. I'm excited to watch these. Like, they're like highlights of the week here. But what do we get as far as special features? Brand new artwork by Sean Lawnmore, reversible sleeve featuring original poster artwork, restored HD master, 3D sequence printed in both, anagrammed 3D, 2 pairs of glasses included in 2D. You can watch in both. Then we have mono soundtrack, original subtitles, audio commentary with author Jonathan Rigby and critic Kevin Loynes. It's a good commentary, enjoyable for sure. Talk a lot about the actors. Radio spot, Flesh and Blood Show, an interview with actor Stuart Bevan. He's the actor who plays Nude in the very end. The Blood Show, an interview with 3D assistant Terry Madden, which is relatively short on there as well, 12 minutes or so. But yeah, the Flesh and Blood Show, I actually like these new artworks done for it. A lot of times they'll do new artworks and they're crummy, but I think these ones are pretty decent. Good stuff. But yeah, I really like this. Looking forward to watch the House of Whipcord. I know we're going to have some religious, kind of crazy, maybe sacrilegious stuff going on, but that sounds very much like the 70s for you. But great stuff. Check it out. Okay, we got a couple new movies here. First up, I'm going to talk about The Mutilator 2 by Buddy Cooper. That's right. So, you know, this movie was made in like 2022 and was released in 2023. Like, loose, I don't know if it ever got a wide release, but it popped up a bit on Amazon Prime. So I'm like, let's check out The Mutilator 2 by Buddy Cooper. The original 1984, probably not widely released till 85, is a slasher that was kind of a regional, low-budget slasher that had gratuitous special effects that are very popular. I probably have a Mutilator. I do have a Mutilator tape somewhere. I should have pulled it out for this. The original unrated black tape. Everybody knows the rated tape was blue. But yeah, so Mutilator got a lot of love because it was kind of hard to find forever. A regional slasher, incredible gore effects, kind of hammy acting with, and it had its own music. Fall Break, Fall Break, Fall Break. Originally called Fall Break, and then Arrow put out the Blu-ray, and it kind of gained another cult following, which was very fun. And I remember always liking the Mutilator, having some fondness for it. I think I even remember when I found the damn tape when I found it. But yeah, so this remake, or the sequel, I should say, legacy sequel, is a meta kind of approach here, like the Town That Dreaded Sundown kind of sequel. And we're having a lot of these legacy sequels, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm really not into legacy sequels, and I'm not so much into indie low-budget movies anymore, modern-day ones. It just doesn't do much for me. And I know you're like, that's bad, that's a shame, Dave, because you used to be in them, you used to review them, and it's just like I've kind of lost, my love for a lot of them. Maybe the movies changed, maybe I changed, maybe a little bit of both. But so the Mutilator is this kind of meta thing here. Oh, I should mention that I saw Pizza Well in here, the YouTuber. That's a nice little fun cameo here. Teddy Kaiser is in here from Weekend at Bernie's and from A Whisper to a Scream and a bunch of other films, Tammy and the T-Rex. And he plays, he basically filled the shoes. He plays the actor, since it's a meta movie, who played Big Ed. In the original Mutilator, probably most likely dead here. It also has the main guy from Black Eyed Susan by Scooter McRae, and he plays a police officer in there. Good performance as well. And another performance I'd like to call out is the one who, the lady who plays the female special effects artist. I think she does a pretty good job as well. A lot of the other acting is sparingly. It's low budget. Some is okay. Some is a little iffy, a little touchy. And it's Mutilator 2 is a weird tone. Like, yes, it's kind of a comedy, and it's not really that funny to me. The comedy's not really, it doesn't really work for me. And the whole meta approach of, hey, we're going to make a sequel where that takes place, whatever, and somebody starts killing people on this kind of the wrapping of Mutilator 2 set. It's been done before, and I don't know if Buddy Cooper's really familiar with a lot of other indie movies or a lot of other, horror movies, the more modern kind of approach, whatnot, or what research he did or what inspired him to do this. But it's not exactly, like a new, it's not treading new ground. But the original Mutilator wasn't either. It is like low budget, definitely can tell on that aspect, and it takes a long time for any of the kills to happen. There was one kill early on that's pretty brutal, pretty well done, but then all the kills are saved for the very ending. And I will say the last 15 or 20 minutes is filled with kills, pretty good kills too. Joe Castro did the special effects, and I know that he was on Facebook and groups and stuff talking about how he's very disappointed how the special effects were handled and edited and whatnot. I'm not sure on all the details there. I don't want to, tell tales out of school or anything like that, but that was a big contention I remember seeing around and everything like that. But for what's in here, most of the special effects look fun and gory, and they're a little over the top. And of course we have the classic kills redone. And there is one scene in here where one of the characters, it's a very meta scene, and I don't want to spoil everything, but it's a real far reach to get there, involving a character watching his own death scene on the TV screen, on the computer screen. And that whole bit of writing to get there is such a far reach. I'm not sure if the gag or the whole joke about it is worth it, but it's very meta, and that's kind of the intent of it. There's also comments about kind of like film bloggers or people like YouTubers on there, like me, myself, or something like that, being there and doing this kind of whole thing like that. So Buddy Cooper obviously has his hand on his fingers on the pulse in that aspect, where he's watched a lot of these people that are super fans of these movies at conventions and things like that. So there is some, I guess, authenticity or some look into it that has some real flair to it, or a real reality to it, or something like that. But it's mostly just kind of a silly, goofy comedy where it brings back some of the same people playing them, themselves from the movie, and it's just weird. I'm not sure necessarily how I feel about it or what the point of it is. Like I said, I'm not the guy for legacy sequels. I'm not the guy for a lot of low budget, super low budget movies anymore. It's just really not my wheelhouse anymore. And like, it's not like I can't talk about them or I don't know anything about them. It's just more like I don't want to be super negative about them. Like, I watched the Street Trash legacy sequel and I really didn't care for it. The Night Watch one I thought was well done, but at the same time, it's not a personal favorite or anything like that. And I feel like I've probably seen another legacy 28 years later and I couldn't fucking stand it. So it's like, it's not really my thing. I just think that a lot of the times it's more winking at the audience that they don't remember, and it's just like, if they're watching this, they probably know what it is and they probably remember it pretty fucking well. I don't know if it's going to branch out into a newer audience, but I will say that I did like some of the kills at the very end, and a couple of the characters I thought worked. There is a really stupid gag about a prop head being stuck on someone's dick that it's like, this doesn't feel placed. This feels like it's out of like Porky's 2 or some shit. I don't know why it's in there, but it is. Mutilator 2, It looks low budget. Obviously, has the drone shots like a lot of modern movies does, and whatnot. And it has clips from the original, of course. But if you're a super fan of the original Mutilator, I think that maybe you'll see some funness in it and get a kick out of a lot of the stuff in here and references. But if you're not, I don't know if you'll have much love for it. So that's the Mutilator 2 by Buddy Cooper. He has a little cameo in here, of course, and I do like the idea that, his little joke was kind of cute and fun. Teddy Kaiser plays it completely huge and over the top, and I think it works decently here. Teddy Kaiser is, he's a character actor's been working forever, so he kind of knows what he's doing in this kind of this subject here. But the ending's a non-ending. It's just kind of like, hey, well, it's over, and it's just like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. But yeah, the Mutilator 2. The poster is not that great either, but check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. Okay, we're going to talk about a brand new theater watch here. This is Together by Michael Shanks, and this stars Allison Brie from Horse Girl and Dave Franco. Now, Dave Franco I've seen pop up in a couple things. I think he's pretty good. What was that? Love Lies Bleeding. He's great and sleazy in that. Allison Brie from Horse Girl is good. And the trailers for this one look pretty good, seeing them in the theaters, so I was interested in it. So yeah, this is kind of in the very beginning, the credits are doing something, and I'm probably going to spoil this one. I'll try to be spoiler free for a while, and I'll start talking about the spoilers. The credits right away were doing something with them, and I was like, oh yeah. And I mean the trailer and everything, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out exactly what's going on fairly quick here. But Dave Franco and Allison Brie moved to an isolated place for Allison Brie finally for her job and stuff like that to be a teacher. And it's kind of like basically only one other character or one other person in the fucking area, and it's the guy who played Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's a character actor. He pops up in The Nightingale. Good actor in a lot of stuff. Kind of a chameleon actor, to be honest. Just good. And Dave Franco was a musician, and they were from like New York. I think they were New York. And so, he's moving away from everything he knows. He doesn't drive. Maybe it's LA or New York. So some big city. I can't remember 100%. So he's moving away. He's going to be isolated. And you could tell there's tons of relationship friction. They're not married, although he's kind of hinted that they probably should be at this point. And Franco has some demons they're creeping up in his past and everything. One day they go for this like kind of long hike walk, and they fall in the ground, and they're hit with this water, which were hinted at. One of them drinks this water, and all things start to go downhill. Franco seems to not be able to get away from Allison Brie. He has to be next to her, and strange things start to happen. Now, I really like this movie. I felt that it resonated very much with the relationship stuff. I felt like it felt real and nuanced, and it also had some comedy in it. The characters say some funny things. There's some situations that become funny only because they're so horrific on the outside watching, but there is comedy to be had within them, and I really appreciated that. I don't need the Pacific Northwest rainy day crying every fucking movie anymore. Okay, guys, I do like some stuff to be. It doesn't need to be completely lighthearted and silly all the time, but I think some comedy can add some levity to the fucking movies. And I don't have a problem with super dark, serious movies all the time either. But sometimes it's nice to go have something a little different. I feel like most movies have some sort of layer of levity in them to break it all up. And I think that Together does that really well. I really like Franco's character and Allison Brie's characters. I think they're realistic. I think that they portray a couple things. And I think some of the body horror sex stuff is really fun too. I really like this movie. It's one of my favorites of the year for sure. It spoke to me, and some movies don't this year. Like Bring Her Back didn't speak to me. I think it was a good movie. Just didn't do much for me. 28 years later, didn't speak to me, and I thought it was a bad movie. But something like this, it spoke to me. I got it. I feel like at my point in life, I could understand a lot of things that are happening. I mean, and some people may not. It might not resonate with somebody, and a lot of the newer films are more being like, are they well done? Are they well acted? How's the script? Is the script fun? Do you enjoy it? Is it clever? And I think Together had enough clever stuff going on. Now, spoilers. So I really like that they talk about the Greek myth, right? The open Greek myth where it says that we are born as with 4 arms and 4 legs, and Zeus split us together because we're too, powerful otherwise, and we've been spending our whole lives trying to find our other half. I love that story. I've always loved that myth. And there's some really cool stuff in here with a kind of a strange religion, kind of, I don't want to say Lovecraft because that is overused and everybody knows that, but like this strange kind of substance and water that this religion kind of practices, and if you drink this water, you end up together forever, actual mixing as one full evil being, and I really like that stuff, that idea, and trying to fight it. And there's a good love story and romance in it. But I would recommend this one. And in the opening, during the credits of the opening, where it says together, it's very Thing-like vision here, which I thought was great with the dog. But love this movie. I actually really love this one. Give it a strong recommend. And I know a lot of people don't love it, or a lot of people are saying it's obvious, but hey, that's fine. Obvious doesn't always mean bad. You know, at least it's consistent. At least it's consistent, right, guys? Okay, the next one here is The Dead Thing, directed by Elric Kane, who's I've been following his podcast for years, Pure Cinema Podcast. What is the one he did? All Colors of the Dark, hit with Rebecca McKendry. I really like him on podcasts. He's a cool guy. Just always enjoyed him, and he was directing a movie. Rebecca McKendry's already directed movies, so his film, debut here, The Dead Thing. I was excited to check it out. So it's on Shudder, and I popped this one in, and I was like, yeah, this is a pretty good, solid first horror film, and it's just a pretty good overall solid horror film. And it's a lot like what you would expect from Elric Kane to a certain extent. You know what I mean? It's subtle. It's not a big giant gore fest or anything like that. It's sexual, has a lot of sexual stuff in it, which is another thing that I'm gonna be happy to talk about. I mean, not like it's got nudity, no, but I'm good seeing more modern movies have more sexual aspects in them, because we kind of like we're shunning away from nudity or sex in movies. Like it was like, oh no, like and this is funny because this is a movie about online dating culture and the apps and all that kind of stuff like that. It's just funny in today's society, people are so likely to go out and just get on an app and have a hookup and have sex with a bunch of people, but then like the cinema or movies are so scared to show any intimacy or any sex in the films. It's like, what are we doing here? This is very bizarre and weird that it's like we become like this puritanical in it again. Like we've gone back steps in that. I don't know if I'm just forcing something on it or it's not there, but it does seem weird where sex and stuff is so widely available online and things, but it's in our mainstream media when it comes to film and stuff like that, it's just like shunned and hidden. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool that it's in here. So to sum this up, is a slight spoiler here. Remember all those Japanese ghost stories about the technology horror, ghosts getting into things like Pulse or One Missed Call? This is essentially just a ghost story for a sex app, which I kind of like. And the first couple acts I think are a little bit more intriguing to me, finding out what's happening and how it works and all that kind of stuff. I think the first two acts are a little bit better. The third act, I'm kind of feeling like it's slightly repetitive, not that it's bad, but that's just my own takeaway. So we have a character who works night shift, and she's kind of going through this endless loop of, she has some dark secrets. She lives with one of her friends that's letting her live there, and she's going through relationship problems either. And so every night she, gets on the sex app, finds somebody, sleeps with them, never makes a real connection. Even if she does make a connection, she never follows through. One day she finds this guy that is just perfect for her. They have a major connection. They stay overnight. They have sex, and she becomes obsessed with him, trying to find him, thinks it's really going to work. She can't find him, and kind of push come to shove, she realizes this guy died. So she basically had slept with a ghost, and the ghost kind of attaches herself to him, and that's when tragedy and crazy horror things start to happen to her and the people around her, and that's kind of the plot. I think that the two main performances are really solid. I think they're really well done, and overall I think The Dead Thing's a good, solid ghost story with a little bit of kind of touches that maybe you haven't seen every day. Elric Kane did a good job on his first movie. Visually it looks good, it sounds good, would recommend The Dead Thing. Not everyone likes subtle kind of ghost stories, but there's some good stuff in here, and the ending is cool too. I enjoyed the ending. I liked how it unfolded, and check out The Dead Thing. Good stuff. It's very much in those veins of Japanese ghost stories, which I love. Okay, let's get into the Patreon pick, and this is Cryptid from 2022 by Brad Rago, I think this is, and I saw the runtime on this, and I'm such like a fucking Brad. It's like the runtime. Everybody talks about the runtime. We're always so busy. We're always so forced to do so much, and it was like 2 hours, and I was like, oh, Cryptid, and this is like, I was like, is this going to be like a found footage cryptic style movie? I like to go in blind, and that's not what we have here. So we have this kind of small, I think it's a Maine town. I think it's supposed to take place in Maine, New England at the very least, and this guy is a down on his luck journalist. He suffered a lot of trauma, suffered a lot of loss, so he's kind of just struggling to hang on. He doesn't have much money. He's like, power's going off, internet's going off, all that kind of stuff like that, and he's kind of stumbles across this kind of crazy scene. He's talking to the police officer who he has a connection with, and the way they have their dialogue, you immediately know that these characters have a long history. I thought that dialogue was well done. I thought their acting between each other portrayed that very well, and they do. And I was like, oh, these guys know each other, and I was like, oh wow, the acting's really solid in a low budget movie. There's like 4 or 5 kind of main principals principal characters, maybe even less, 3, and they all do a good job. It's all believable. It's low budget, and I'm sitting here always ragging on low budget movies nowadays, but I was like, Cryptid, this is pretty fucking good for a low budget movie, and the acting is good and all that stuff, and the camera work's solid, but the acting and characters and writing, I think, is the strongest part here. So he notices that there's been this car accident. The sheriff doesn't want to give him anything, but he gives him a little bit, enough to keep him intrigued, and what we have is a car accident, possibly a bear attack, and he's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. He starts to dig into it, and he gets his other journalist friend in there, and they start to look deep into the case, and they realize that something's not right. They start to catch on patterns of people disappearing and animals being attacked, and they start to interview a lot of the people, and there's some really creepy moments here in stories, and a lot of naturalistic acting and whatnot, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be kind of like, hey, maybe we heard like a bump in the night and that's as far as it gets. No, it turns into a full-out monster movie, which I loved, and we have these characters, we realize their backstories, we realize their connection with each other, and some people die. There's some decent special effects all around, and this is really how you'd make a low-budget horror film and make it well, and I think they did a good job, and it all starts with the script and the acting and the direction, and they didn't have, the biggest budget in the world or anything like that, but they handled what they had well, and they told a pretty decent story that starts off as kind of like a mystery, kind of intriguing story that I thought was going to be very subtle and turns into a monster movie. Now, the monster at one point is shown a little too much. He does look a little goofy at times, and they leave it open in the generic kind of way like they would in the 80s Animal Attacks movies, but overall, I thought that Cryptid was a solid, low-budget horror film that I didn't expect much out of, and it surpassed my expectations, and I really liked the lead guy's performance, his journalist friend, and the sheriff. I thought the sheriff was a genuinely good performance, and I thought that the way he handled himself was realistic, and I liked their relationship amongst each other. Surprisingly, well done. And, they are still out there, these low-budget movies. You could find good ones in 2022. I don't remember who picked this as Patreon, but good choice. I really enjoyed it. Good stuff. All right, let's get these questions, comments, and concerns. Ken Coakley. I tried watching Poseidon 10 or so years ago, but fell asleep. I did, however, see the Poseidon Adventure in 1973 when I was a kid. I also saw Towering Inferno in Boston in 75. Across the street, another theater played Earthquake. It seemed at the time that there would be no end to the disaster movies that were popping out, many at a time. During last week's show, you mentioned possible reasons for the end of the disaster movie. It's my opinion that the following factors played a part in the rise and fall of the disaster movies, and this is pretty thorough, and I probably agree with it. A. Star power. The first disaster film was Airport in 70. It featured a cast that included Lancaster, Dean Martin, Helen Hayes, Van Heflin, and Jacqueline Bisset. George Kennedy also starred in Airport and every other film in this franchise. All the famous ones delivered the goods. In Airport, the Poseidon Adventure, the Towering Inferno, Earthquake, the disaster started almost immediately. The viewer didn't have time to think about character development. To add to the excitement of the Towering Inferno, the two biggest box office stars at the time, Newman and McQueen, shared top billing. McQueen was supposed to star in Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid as Butch and Newman as Sundance, but McQueen backed out. A new sound process came out called Sense Surround, made its debut with Earthquake. The theater added extra speakers and turned the volume all the way up, causing the ground in the auditorium to shake. Sense Surround was also used for the film version of Battlestar Galactica. I went to see a Harrison Ford film called Hangover Street. Battlestar Galactica was showing on the other side of the 6-screen theater, and I couldn't hear the dialogue from Hangover Street. And I remember the Earthquake. I think there was an Earthquake ride at Universal Studios, if I remember correctly. I remember riding that. I remember there was a Twister for sure. I think there might have been an Earthquake. Maybe Twister replaced Earthquake, can't remember. Irwin Allen produced 80% of the disaster movies that came out, and he had literally a dozen movies in the works, and only 3 of them were realized. In the 90s, disaster movies were seemingly coming with 2 volcano movies in 97, 2 asteroid films in 98. The 2 volcano movies, Dante's Peak and Volcano, were both box office disappointments, even though both were entertaining. The next year, Deep Impact and Armageddon were both released. Armageddon did well, but that's it. Deep Impact was three-fourths in by the time the asteroid struck. The damage was also minimal. 3 years later, Pearl Harbor was released. The trailers made it look like Saving Private Ryan in the Pacific. The movie was cheap imitation of From Hell to Eternity. There was the nonsense about the love triangle between Harnett, Affleck, and Kate Beckinsale. Then Pearl Harbor was attacked with 20 minutes left in the film. Pearl Harbor is basically a remake of From Here to Eternity, but From Here to Eternity was released as a movie with a love triangle between Lancaster, Deborah Kerr, and Ward Bond. The Pearl Harbor attack was an added ingredient to sweeten the pot. On the other movies you reviewed, I saw Super Inframan back 10 years ago at a local theater. I did own the VHS in the early 90s. Danny Lee was most famous for being in a couple John Woo movies, The Killer with Chow Yun-fat and Just Heroes with Stephen Chow and David Chang. I like Inframan because it's a kiddie matinee film from the 70s. When I was a kid, I saw The Three Fantastic Supermen, which was an Italian spy/superhero movie. I also saw The Woman in the Yard. I watched again a month ago. The title character is creepy looking with the veil covering her, but when she took it off, she was quite beautiful. The film was atmospheric as well as eerie. Lastly, I want to say R.I.P. to Ozzy Osbourne, one of my favorite vocalists. I was dreading the moment, and the world seems so different without him in it. R.I.P. Ozzy. The Nick Bull from Belgium. I remember hearing about The Woman in the Yard that was merely a rip-off stew of many better films, but movies don't steal from each other, right? Right? Seriously now, if you're going to steal from the best. Of course, I haven't regretted purchasing the Pete Walker box set for 1 second. I foretell you, have many hours of enjoyment, young grasshopper. I like his saucy movies box set too. Question, would you say that House of Long Shadows is a must for a Pete Walker fan's completist? I mean, it's a must to see if you're a big horror fan because you're going to see Lee, Cushing, Price, and Carradine, and that's the only movie all four of them ever did together, and they share scenes, and it's fun. It's not the best movie in the world, but it's a vastly interesting one, and I look forward to rewatching it for 83. Who did it better, Hammer, Amicus, or Tygon, according to you? Gotta give it to Hammer for the sheer volume. Amicus has some great movies, but Hammer has so many fucking movies, so I gotta give it to Hammer, although Amicus is closer than a lot of people might think. What's the most blatant ripoff you ever saw in horror? I mean, there's countless ones. It's got to be one of the Bruno Mattei movies just for sheer comedy purposes, but they're so blatant they become almost a comedy joke. So you're just like, eh. But, oh boy, I'm just going to mention one here. What was that Hellinger movie? Remember the Cenobite ripoff guy? The whole plot isn't, but that character, the Hellinger ripoff, was hilarious. He's just like a ripoff of Pinhead. He's like, oh yes, it's so bad, but so funny. Keep up your stellar work, sir. Your show is an ever delight. Long, long may it continue. My regards to your army of cats. See you next week, God willing. I don't have an army of cats. This comment smells of death. I always like to imagine that whenever a ridiculous script landed on Run Run Shaw's desk, he immediately yelled out to his secretary, quick, get me Danny Lee on the phone. Between films like Super Inframan, The Oily Maniac, Bruce Lee and I, Mighty Peking Man, The Battle Wizard, they sure liked putting him in some goofy shit. Extremely entertaining shit, though, so I'm not complaining. Yeah, he's in some weird shit. Waver Boy, did you get the 88 films blue of Super Inframan? Excellent. No, I did not. I think it's out of print. I would definitely like one, but hopefully a US or re-release anywhere comes out. Mike Moore, yeah, I feel like the 70s and then again the 90s were prime disaster movie territory. It's kind of odd we don't seem to get many since the 90s. Had Dante's Peak, Twister, Poseidon, Daylight with Stallone was good. Independence Day, The Core, Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones. Even 2012 had a few moments, although I would say that that was one of the weaker ones. He said, as far as the 70s goes, think The Towering Inferno has to be my favorite, but all those Edgar G. Ulmer movies made for TV films are pretty good as well, in my opinion. All right. Ilk Vomit. Hey, very true about the basic cheese pizza. Way Up Dude gives me a thumbs up and everything. Thank you. I appreciate it. Show really quick the one movie I got in my update here. Shaw Brothers Volume 7. I still need 5, but I got Volume 7 because it was on a sale. How many movies do we have in here? We have Imperial Raiders, The Legend of the Bat, the Shadow Boxer, the Spiritual Boxer, Heaven's Sword and Dragon Sabre, Heaven's Sword and Dragon Sabre 2, Shaolin Handlock, the Swordsman and Enchantress, the Proud Twins, A Deadly Secret, Heroes Shed No Tears. There we go, all in the back there. Got them all on 2 discs here. Love the Shaw Brothers releases so far. I'm going to pick up what I can. Let's do the Patreon picks. We're going to take 5 names out of here. Again, if you haven't been drawn out in the last 3 picks, let me know. You'll get a bump up top. So what do we got? Mixing them all up. First one up is Art Figurito, Comfort of Strangers. Cool name. What else? Frank's Comic Castle, Hitchhike, classic. Nick Mua, Antiviral, cool stuff. And the Cronenberg's Kid movie. So we got 2 more coming up. Art Figurito also gets King of the Gypsies. And last, James Baker, Don't Look Now. I've never covered Don't Look Now on there, the classic 73 one. So, good movies. That's a good lot that time there, guys. But yeah, let's get out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.